No.
I would think
That's hilarious. Oh my God. That's really
Yeah, thanks for the sign.
Turn around. Laura, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Welcome. I'd like to call to order the February 28th North Scott Community School District Board meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you very much. Can I have approval of agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Comments and suggestions from citizens. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to make a comment? Well, welcome for those that are here tonight and just visiting. Please know that there is a way that you can ask or provide any suggestions or comments to on that link and or call Mr. Studding at any time, and we will help answer any questions that anyone may have or any ideas you may have. We'd like to hear from you. We would like to hear from you. Thank you. Can I have approval of consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And let's move on to the bills. Jill.
Thank you. This evening I have $845,888 worth of bills presented for approval for payment. Included in those, I have selected to highlight a payment to Dell Marketing. That's for $6,430 for live stream computer equipment, technology department, and Ed White computers. There's a payment to Meteor Education for $10,251 for 51 cafe stools at the high school, and a payment to Russell Construction for $237,745 for the 9th progress payment on the Y.
Great.
Thank you.
Jill, any questions for Jill? Comments? We're going to hear a Y update later, but okay. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve, pay the bills.
Seconded.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And again, anybody has any questions you thought of? Okay. Let's move on to recognitions.
All right, we had girls wrestling. Kylie Wainwright placed 6th in the girls state tournament. Boys wrestling, Hayden Eula, Aiden Golden, Kale Straley, Aiden Carey, Dylan Marty, Ryan Campbell, David Boucher, AJ Peterson.
Porchers.
What?
Porchers.
Porchers, thank you. AJ Peterson's 4th place, Trace Gephardt 5th place, Peyton Westland 5th place, and Seth Madden 7th place. So congratulations to them. We had 2 state swimming qualifiers. That's swim with the Pleasant Valley Co-op program, Ryland Feast and Keaton Brock. Congratulations. State bowling, the team took 4th place, and so the 2 individuals, I think, qualified as individuals, is the way that should read. So congratulations to our boys state bowling for taking 4th place as a team. State large group contest, Bertha and the Beautiful Typewriter Girl earned a Division I rating for the act play. Disney's Frozen musical earned a Division I rating for large group musical theater. Congratulations to them.
That's great, wonderful. Does anybody have any comments for any of those?
I saw both of those plays, and I would say that they were Division I and mine, or very high ratings for me, so they're doing a great job. And I was, really, the wrestlers qualified 11?
11, yep, school record.
That's pretty remarkable, so congratulations to everybody on the list, but, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, John, it's good. Good news there. Committee reports, we do have a health committee report.
And we will have a health committee or a health recommendation today. The health committee had been meeting for the last few weeks. Our initial renewal after the first of the year came in 16%, a little over 16%. We haven't had an increase in 3 years, so which is very unusual. We were able to do some things to bring that 16% by changing the med card things we did tonight. We got it down to 6.6, and then we made other adjustments to go from 286,000 and spread that out over, and so you'll hear about that. So, but really a thank you to the committee. It's a lot of work, and there's representation from all different groups within the school district.
Yeah, that's good to say. Any questions about that report?
Is that a pretty standard increase we're seeing with our neighboring school districts?
It's over the board. That 10, I would say 8 to 12% is pretty standard. So that would be unusual. What was unusual for us is everybody else has had increases for the last 4 years.
That's what I was gonna say. We have an increase, but they all
Right.
have.
Yeah.
So.
And we all do it different. I was talking to superintendents today. PV now, the total increase goes to the employee because they have a capped amount their district spends. So they're well over $300 and some a month for family health insurance and dental. They don't have eye insurance. Bettendorf's well over $300 and some, but their deductibles are really low still. So it's hard. You don't compare apples to apples anymore between all of the districts.
Okay, good. Good question, Mark. Now we're here at Ed White Elementary. We're looking forward to your report, your presentation. So we will turn it over to you, Carrie, and
This
the
is
team.
Laura Jacobson. She's our instructional coach, and Angie Greeny, 6th grade teacher. They're gonna show you and kind of demonstrate how engaging and exciting our science curriculum is.
Great. All right. Where do you want us to stand? Does it matter? Are we good here? Okay, great, thanks. At least have a little fun. Our plan tonight is to just to give you a brief overview of the standards and then talk about a little bit of theory that we base some of our experiences that we design for students on. And then also we have some fun application photos and videos to show you those standards in action here at Ed White. So the standards, the next generation science standards have been out for quite a while, and every year, every summer, we're making revisions to our units and just our approach to those standards. And so just some key ideas. They have broad importance across multiple science and engineering disciplines, and we try to teach conceptual understandings. And so as you see, if you look at our scope and sequence, some of the things that kindergartners are studying is we pull those through all the way through 6th grade level. And again, they build upon each other, and what they learn in kindergarten, what they learn about life sciences in 1st grade and 2nd grade is also applied and used to build even more complex understandings in 6th grade, which you'll see later. So like math practice standards, we want our students not just answering math problems or completing math worksheets, or again, just computing. We really want them to think like mathematicians. Well, there are some science and engineering practice standards that are built into these standards, and so we really want our students to be thinking like scientists. We want them to think about what kind of model can we build to alleviate this real world problem. And so we really try to keep things developmentally appropriate, but also really attach them to the real world. And so what do scientists do to investigate our world? They use their observation, and they're looking at their world, but then they're also taking notes. And you'll see that in some of the examples. And then what do engineers do to design and build systems? And so there's that range of cognitive and social and physical practices that we want our students to engage in. And again, not just during math, not just during science, but across their day. But today we're just going to highlight it in science. And those cross-cutting concepts, so you make the observation, you've made some tentative hypothesis, it's either been proven or disproven by the experiment. So now how can you share your understanding and your findings with other people? And again, I know our 6th graders and our kindergartners have a relationship and their buddy system. So a lot of times if the kindergartners are working on something, they'll call their 6th grade buddies in, and they'll be able to share some of their science experiments and projects. So a little bit of theory. We've already touched on it, but just a little bit. And so, thanks. Oh, I should have maybe got a little closer. No, it's all right. So really, all meaning through any kind of meaning that we construct, whether it's in science, in math, in literacy, all of that meaning is socially constructed. And so it's socially constructed with others, but then it's also constructed through our direct experience. So every input that our brain receives, we filter that through our own experiences. And so we work really hard to tailor those experiences for students so that they can gain that deep understanding. And with those understandings, then they're able to generalize about common phenomena, things that we take for granted, like the phases of the moon, and that things in nature, and even things in the physical world, there's a pattern to that. And so we can start predicting things about our world around us because we have an understanding that those patterns and those cycles are universal. Also, in order to make sense of those experiences, they need that direct instruction. So we can't ask students to talk about some phenomenon or something that they've observed if we haven't provided them some direct instruction and some vocabulary. And so really we need that direct instruction, that teacher-led direct instruction, before we just let kids loose with some experiments. And they learn at that conceptual and that procedural level with those hands-on experiences. They understand that if I add a lot of water to the sand, this is what's going to happen. But through that, they're learning that conceptual understanding also. One more theory page and then we're getting to the good stuff. Nope, you were right. So those scientific concepts are the basis of that theoretical reasoning, because we really want students to start making those decisions and again, those tentative hypotheses on their own. And so that those beginnings of that theoretical reasoning and that emergence of higher mental functioning really increases a student's motivation. So the more that they can we always say we want to wrap our brain around what we're seeing or what we're doing, then that builds some intrinsic motivation. So that it's not just the teacher's job to instill that motivation. We can really pull that out from students. And then how students come to think about the content also increases that motivation. They can solve those real world problems with more efficiency, and they can be more effective. And again, success begets success begets success. So the more successful opportunities that we can provide for students, again, the more I guess equipped they feel in order to handle that next challenge that's going to come along. And those essential properties of objects and ideas, those are the things that, regardless of what you're doing, you just have to understand that if I drop something on my foot, it's going to go down. And if it's a heavy something, it's really gonna hurt. If it's a light something, it's probably not gonna hurt quite as bad. So we want just those properties of the world around them. And finally, we want them to internalize that standard performance. So what does it mean, again, to the standard of performance? You have to observe, you have to write down in your science notebook, because we're going to use that later on, or we're going to use it for a discussion with somebody a little bit later. So all of that is really built on Vygotsky's theory, and we've got, and there's a little bit of apprenticeship theory that's based on. So we've got the more knowledgeable other, and I always point to Angie for the more knowledgeable other. We've got the more knowledgeable other guiding our students to come to some of these conclusions and these understandings on their own. So now we're coming to the good stuff. So here are just some clips. All of these were taken in the second trimester. So we just finished up our second trimester on Friday. So all of these examples. So this is a kindergarten example. They read The Three Little Pigs, but it's not just for story time in traditional literature. They're understanding motion and forces. And so their job is to design, they make a plan and then design a structure that will withstand, actually teachers bring in their blow dryers, that can withstand some force on that. Would it be helpful to have the lights? Want me to hit the lights?
Right now, I get it. It's just going to shut it off.
Here.
I know, it's not that hard to cut paper. I mean, paper. Yeah. I'm trying to make a house. Not that building. This is wood. I made it from wood. I am watching you. Oh, we decided I'd be the back and I'm making a back again.
So just a couple highlights on that. First of all, cute, as adorable, right? But notice in the background, there's that discussion, and they're socially building their understandings. Also, think about the one little guy said, well, it's easier to cut Play-Doh than it is through paper. So what is he learning about the forces? And then finally, the little girl who said, well, we decided that he was going to do the front and I was going to do the back. So again, they're negotiating and they're making a plan about how they both can complete their task. This was short too.
My flashlight gets, while we're away, it gets smaller and smaller. But once it gets closer, it gets bigger and bigger. Mrs. Wolf, look at mine.
He noticed, and again, he had the vocabulary. I believe Mrs. Wolf just said, hey, what are you doing? What are you learning about? And he was able to say that when you push the flashlight closer, what happens to the shadow? This is second grade, and so they had their plants and part of their life science. And so look at the observation of what they made from their plants, and then how that manifested itself in their science notebooks. And I'm sorry, but I just had to share the part that said dead.
It did. 4 times on there.
Yeah.
It did crossed out.
But if you notice, there's really detailed drawing. They're showing you all the dead parts and how it's been on the top, and then most likely it's because something happened in the roots. So again, they make those observations, and every day or every other day they're making observations about their plants, they're drawing pictures, and then they're labeling it, again, drawing in that vocabulary. So that's a second grade example. And then sixth grade, I'm gonna toss that one over to Angie Greeny.
Okay. And so there's 3, and I'll get into the organization of science, but right now we just finished what you would know as Chemistry 101 in 6th grade science, physical science. And we've been looking at the...
You want it back on?
That's fine. And I don't know if you want me to set the stage for that one or this one or both.
Either one,
Okay.
either one.
And again, like Laura said, cross-curricular. You know, we get into a lot of the informational reading standards. In 6th grade, we get into a lot of math with energy transfer and calculating calories and heat transfer and so forth. But the most important part, I think, of science for many 6th graders is the team building and the working together and strategizing and communicating and making sure that everyone is heard. And that's big. That's very important. Again, life science, physical science, earth science, what you're looking into that picture is physical science. These pictures are fairly new, just a few weeks ago. And the students are looking at various common household items, such as, we say sodium bicarbonate or sodium chloride. We know it as table salt or baking soda, but I don't tell them that, citric acid. And they're looking at the properties, and as you said, they're making sure that they're using all of their senses and they're using that rich descriptive writing and details. Go? Okay. This last week, we're studying, again in physical science, energy transfer and kinetic energy, and I told them that I got a phone call from Hydro Flask, and they are really, sales are down at Dick's Sporting Goods. I make all this up. And I said that they're looking for new insulation. We talked about insulation, and even at a 6th grade level, there's really not a lot of experience with what is insulation, because they always think that it just pertains to building products. So we talk about vacuum seals and how Hydro Flask became so popular and charges such an extravagant amount of money for their water bottles because of the fact that they keep things hot and keep things cold. And how do they do that? So I have them do a little research on their own, and then we get into criteria and constraints. And I said, okay, so Hydro Flask just gave us this $1 million contract, but we have to reduce energy transfer. So, and then we talk about what that is, and the constraint is you can only use recycled materials. So somebody whispered in my ear, can I bring a mini fridge? No, you may not. Somebody else said, can I bring a candle and light it? No, you may not. Everything has to be made out of recycled materials. And they were so excited. Just the conversations and the team building that entailed last week, you came in the middle of it and you could just feel the excitement in the room. And this is when all of those students shine. It's amazing to watch. And I have a direct quote. I said to one student, what do you really like about science the most? And she said, quote, in science, I get to use both my brains and my hands to learn every day. And that's so important to them, that kinetic component. And here were some of the other, these are just examples. They brought things from home and experimenting with the analogy of, a down coat will keep you warm because the particles are spread further apart. So one group decided to bring in some feathers, some packing material from meals that had come, and they were pretty competitive in their timing and their. Then we went back and talked about those engineering standards and saying that how would you revise if you could do it again? So we had another trial, and they just had a ball with it, and they also learned. So it was really interesting to see them. We get into speaking and listening standards, a lot of comparing and contrasting, a lot of revising. So it's just, here's one more example when we were doing, at the beginning of the year, life science. And we looked at both plant and human cells, but we took it a step further and they had to think of an analogy. So this particular group, this is just one sample, used a hospital. How could you compare a cell to a hospital? They're both systems. Someone else had a police department. How would you break down the systems and the services that they provide, both in our human and plant cells and in everyday life, things that we encounter, and make those analogies. So having those rich discussions and deciding on which particular choices to make at each table.
So the next slide shows a quick video of the students kind of trying to decide what what did you call it, the mystery solution? Yes, is that what's going on? Okay.
That was citric acid and calcium bicarbonate. Water soda. Yeah, this is the front, the very front paper. This was the first time. Yeah, we mixed a bunch of.
Just the back of looking at their notes, they're trying to kind of, frame up what they have in their notes with what they're observing.
And again, everyone has a chance to be heard and offer their ideas, and based on the residue, based on the reaction they saw, they had to then compare and contrast and decide what the mystery solution was.
We've got just a couple more examples for you. The next one, this is 3rd grade, so this was a water unit, and what they're trying to understand is that the bigger the drop of water, the faster it will travel, and then also they're talking about the slope of the ramp. So these are just some pictures. I wanted to highlight the fact that they have their science notebooks, they've got their regular notebooks or their science journals, and then they've got their materials right there. So. And then this one you have to listen carefully because I wasn't paying attention and she was saying some important things. So this gets better. It's not just on the floor.
The size of the domes and the speed at which it moves. What did you notice? Lincoln?
The bigger the water
Who agrees? The bigger the water dome is,
So
the
again,
faster
Mrs.
it moves.
McVeigh is really reinforcing the size of the dome. So she's using that technical, I said the word droplet, didn't I? But she was using the size of the dome. So she's really trying to get them to come to that understanding. And then they're all writing that together, that shared, they've had that shared experience, and then they're having that shared understanding in their notebooks. And again, I just wanted to reinforce that writing component that comes through every science lesson. I think there's one more.
The size of the domes and
Choose. Yes, 5th grade. This first video, you have to pay attention to the girls in the back. And so she's got water and they're adding oil. Their job is they had to make a plan on how to contain oil spill. And so they've got some rocks, they've got some water in a bowl, and then Mrs. Marceau is taking the oil and putting it in the water in their trays. And so just check out the little girl way in the back at that high top table. Just watch her expression when she puts it in the bowl.
It does. So you put it in the water, you hold it, and release it.
And then again, that next picture is everybody are in that experiment, right? All their heads
Are instantaneous.
they're all super engaged in that task.
We have 2 squeezers. Can you squeeze it? Where's the other one? No. You have 2 of those?
Again, definitely socially and socially building their own understanding. And so this quote, this final quote was from, well, I picked it because it was from Linda Fielding, who was a University of Iowa professor. But it said, conversation gives students another opportunity to practice and to build those comprehension skills collaboratively, building the all-important community of readers, community of learners, community of scientists, community of mathematicians. You can add anything in that, but all of that comes through those conversations. So thank you. Any questions?
Great. Good. Guys,
Nice
questions?
job.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have the kids, I mean, I love what's going on, the interaction, the engagement, hands-on, terrific. What's your assessments been as far as the retention of what's going on in the classroom, and I hate to bring it up, how is our science scores according to MAP or whatever we do in the elementaries as far as state tests in science?
I can answer
Yeah.
6th grade
Yep.
assessment.
Mhm.
So I use a variety.
Okay.
I'll use an example of the physical science that we just did. We have actually some eye checks, they're called, and they're comprehensive assessments after each investigation. And they're
Pretty high.
they're pretty rigorous. I
Good.
mean, the kids really have to know their stuff. There's a few multiple choice, but there's a lot of writing components, a lot of evaluation, synthesis. So I administer those after every investigation. And then I do a lot of exit tickets.
Okay.
I do a lot of big takeaways, and today I did, for example, after we were studying the energy transfer, I tried to use a variety of assessments, and today they had to illustrate. They had to do some illustrating. So we do have several assessments.
So we're looking for some near transfer, like
Sure.
this is what we did today,
Mhm.
and then at the end of that unit, and typically units last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, so that's a little bit further out.
Mhm.
And then Bernie's pulling up
Mhm.
some graphs for state.
Yeah. So when we compare proficiency from, let me see. You know what? We didn't have matched cohort data from science from 2019 to 2021
Okay.
because of the grade levels that they take it. We only take it at 5th, 8th, and I believe 11th grade.
Right.
But when we compare ourselves to the state, well, first of all, I remember just by looking at those graphs, statewide proficiency in math really jumped even despite the pandemic. So you can see the statewide emphasis on math has gone up. But when we compare ourselves to the state, that's math and science. In 5th grade, 65% of our students were proficient compared to 54% at the state level. In 8th grade, 83 were proficient compared to 65% at the state level. In 10th grade, 80 were proficient as compared to 64%. And if I remember correctly, back in 2019, the first time we took it, I think statewide that proficiency level was below 50%.
Okay.
And that was across the board. It was the lowest assessment.
So Angie, would you say that you've been doing this for a number of years, or have you been doing this just within the last few years?
5th
I
grade
mean,
science I've been doing for a number of years.
Okay.
6th grade, no,
I
not
mean, I know we had COVID in there, so
Right.
it kind of screwed us
Yeah.
over a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just like what's going on, the engagement of the kids, the interaction, the different variety, and I know your assessments, I mean, I'm just concerned, the retention of the kids, are they able to grasp all that? I would think they should if they're
Absolutely.
hearing, working together, and then they have to
Right.
write it down.
Right.
Now, how many times they go back and look at it, that's.
No, and that's a really good question, because it is more than just.
So it's, yeah, here's the information.
But are those
learn it,
big ideas
yeah, right.
transferring? I see what you're
So I
saying.
think
Yeah.
that's great.
Mhm.
Thanks.
So to follow up with Frank a little bit, I agree, this is good stuff, this is really, and the fun stuff and all that. But to follow up with him, when they do a collaboration, is the retention, we would think the retention's better, but do we have any proof that the retention is better in that collaboration time versus reading it out of a book and individually?
Well, Vygotsky says that when we socially construct our learning,
Mhm.
and also when we're able to read about it, even physically write about it, we're engaging more parts of
Right.
our brain.
Right.
And again, that discussion part of it
Right.
also, not only do we have to kind of organize our thinking when we're talking about it, but just that other like feedback loop of just hearing our own voice talk about it and say the words provides it just strengthens those networks that we're building in the brain.
So he says that, but do we see that? Do we see in any of our assessments or anything else, or we're just doing it because it does feel good and it appears to work?
These are typically best practices in science instruction and instruction in general.
Okay.
And with it, the expectation is known that you're working collaboratively and you're making decisions based on basically the majority of the group feels is best for our particular objective for the day. But there's also the expectation that every student is individually responsible for their learning based on my exit tickets or my eye checks. So it's not just like, okay, well, I'm grading you on this group project. So every student is responsible for those detailed notes. We keep it, and I should have brought an example of one of the notebooks, but they know they have to take explicit notes. They go back and they refer to those notes. And we talk about, you know, NASA, because once in a while I'll have a student say, oh, I didn't write anything down. And we talk about, you know, when we went to the moon, did somebody say, well, I had a great idea. Did you write it down? I didn't, you know, so I act out a lot of things, and we talk about those rich details and the various ability ranges, but it doesn't matter, we're going back because I have an obligation to prepare them for crossing the street to junior high, and where, you know, every year it's gonna get a little bit more detailed. So, you know, on the surface it may look like we're just doing a lot of hands-on fun, but there is that rigor and there are those detailed notes and that accountability piece that's built in.
And I know, Laura, early in your presentation, I know the focus was really on what the kids are doing, but I heard you say there's still direct instruction, right?
Yes.
So you didn't, so that part got just glossed over because we want to show you what kids are doing, we want to show you the hands-on. But you specifically said our kids need to know from the teachers direct instruction so they know the vocabulary and stuff. So I wouldn't want anybody even watching this to think that our teachers didn't have a bunch of teaching they did to get to that.
Out. Yeah.
So,
Right,
yeah.
right.
By the way, I love the toothpicks underneath the box.
Yeah, again, he was trying to eliminate the energy transfer. So
Yeah, yeah.
they put a lot
Yeah.
of time and effort
I
and
like
thought.
that. That was-
They really did.
Use air as your insulation.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
No, those are good questions that Frank, John, everybody had. And I guess you could go, Laura and Angie, you've been teachers for a while. When you look at all this, socially constructing and all this, is there something missing? Is there something you think you wish you could do better or different? I mean, not glossing over the fact that it's already some great things we're doing. I mean, this was fun. This is exciting to see this. And I know it's pretty detailed. Is there anything else that you would like to see?
Well, I mean, I think good teaching is you reflect every night when you go home. And you always look at something that maybe you could have done different for a particular student. But in general, I really think the FOSS kits that we use for 2 out of the 3 of our science units are very valuable, and they're updated frequently. They have an online component. If we have a student out for a week, I can still connect with them in that regard. So in regards to anything specific or big, not necessarily, but I reflect every night. How can I help this particular student? How can I help my class in general? Tweak a lesson. We do a lot of differentiation. When I have a student, for example, leave for an intervention, I make sure that somehow when they come back into the classroom, that they're getting the big idea.
Sure.
And time. I think universally teachers would like more time to spend in science, in reading, and math, and social studies.
And you know, you mentioned Joe when she touched on vocabulary, you know, when we're doing that direct instruction, and a lot of times we try to, again, cross-curricular, and those reading, those informational standards in reading, for example, in 6th grade, a lot of those words will come up in some text and we can refer back. And remember when we talked about that energy transfer, kinetic energy, looking at calories. Maybe we're reading an article on nutrition and we say, well, let's talk about the calories in our heat and cooling transfer. So it connects over throughout the day, so it can flow in more ways than one.
There's no doubt in my mind that you are perfecting it, and you both are experts in this. And thank you for what you do for our kids. Molly's got some.
Yeah, so do you work in your PLCs of like how is every other 5th grade doing, do you talk about similar experiences? Do you talk about or share your ideas about what experiments you're doing?
Oh, yes.
Just to kind of, so what does that look like at the other schools, or should say? Do you come up with your own experiments? Do you collaborate and kind of share ideas, or what does that look like around the district?
Those units and what we do with those FOSS kits, because the FOSS kits offer like this many experiences, and so again, with our time, we're really getting to what that core emphasis and what that core knowledge should be. And so again, as across our grade level teams, our district grade level teams, have really narrowed down and said, this is a must do, this is a must do. So every student across the district is getting this experience and this experience and this information. They're taking this common assessment, and then if you happen to have some time, here are like 2 other possibilities that you can use out of the kit or out of our district made unit also.
So the experiments are all, some of them are the same as well, so maybe,
Yes.
you know, this particular one, maybe every school's doing it for that grade level.
Yes.
Right.
Others you may.
Theirs may look a
have
little
ones,
different,
yeah.
but they're still dealing with, for example, energy transfer, criteria constraint, and then bringing in their own, like all of this was brought in on their own, so yeah.
And every second grade classroom they're growing plants in the fall, and they're making those same observations.
It's awesome, those two classrooms. They all
You
work
can
so
tell the
well.
kids are so engaged, and I know it would be way easier to get out a textbook and throw out some handouts. And so I just appreciate all the time that you guys are putting in. I know that it's a lot of work, and it shows. The kids are so engaged and doing so well, so thank you guys for all the work.
And just a really quick follow-up, I know we're going long, sorry, but so in second grade, they have a sand and silt unit that's part of the FOSS kit, and they're learning how, you know, the size of the pebbles, and they're learning about how water and air both move through sand and silt. So Jennifer Sabota, second grade teacher, has her sand collection, and so she started it just, you know, on family vacations. But then after that unit, she's encouraged her students to bring back a sample of sand if they're somewhere on vacation. And so really, like, there are ones from 2016. Gosh, Simon Mooseheart's been out of here a long time. So again, and so these kids are bringing back their little baggies, and then she's not their teacher anymore, but they're bringing back little baggies of sand, and then she's adding it to the collection, and then she's showing it to her current second graders, and then they're like, oh, that, you know, that kid babysat me, or I know who that is, or that kid lives next door to me. So anyway, it's just, again, you know, we really, yeah, it's more than just that. Yeah, I know. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Good job, thank you so much for sharing all this tonight. Makes our meeting. Okay, let's move on to old business, and we have policy committee recommendations.
So we're on the second reading. I went through them at the last board meeting. If there's any questions, otherwise it's making a recommendation for a motion to approve the policy.
So you're not gonna read them again?
I wasn't planning on it, but I will, if you have a question on one, I will
That's
be
all right,
more than
that's
happy
all right.
to.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion passes. Anybody from the committee, Mark, Tracy, anything you'd like to say or offer?
Got a lot of work done, we still have
Yeah.
more work to do,
Yep.
so.
Little by little. I know. No, those are good. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to new business and land purchase agreement. Joe?
Okay, first up, included in your packet is a contract to purchase a lot from the Grunwall addition in Grunwall Grove for our student-built home. It's a 20% reduction on the cost of the lot, as Grunwalls are supportive of our program. So the recommendation is to purchase a lot at $68,000. We also have a commitment from them to be able to purchase lots for the next few years at that reduced price, 20%. Now, obviously that 68 could still go up if land values go way up, but this will at least give us a house to build for next year. We have advertised to see if there's a owner out there that'd like us to build a house, and we may still go that direction and save that lot for a year. But in order to get going, we need a lot purchase, and that's what this is for.
So Joe, the goal with this is though, I understand we're sitting on like the trade committee and everything, is Grunwalls does not want the lots to sit empty for a very long time. That's why we're kind of piecemealing the purchase of the lots.
Correct. Our first initial offer is buy 5 lots right up front and try to get a really good deal. But as a developer, the last thing you want is 5 lots sitting empty because, you know, we're holding them and doing something else as long as we have it because we want it in our back pocket so the program would never ultimately not build because we didn't own a lot. So I understand from a developer, but that's why we're doing just 1 lot with the promise that if we wanted to buy more, they'll still work with us.
If they're available.
If they're available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the house prices in the addition?
They start at 300 is the way they advertise. Jill, am I right? Because I know you and I
That's
had
what
kind of
the
started.
sign is out there.
300 without a basement, so they're probably more like 340 with basements, I think is somewhere in that range.
But they're the size of the houses that were typical for our student built homes.
Yeah.
So,
And there's something that there is a house up there with no basements.
I don't know if nobody has,
Oh,
but
okay.
when they say a house at 300, that means you're not putting a basement in there.
Right.
No, you're not finishing the basement.
You're not.
No, you're not putting a basement, that's their
The
slab.
Structure's there, right, the structure's there.
No,
Structure's
you're
there.
talking about
You're
slabs.
not finishing the basement.
No, it's a slab. It
Really?
is, that's why they
Oh, it is a
advertise it. A
slab.
house at 300 is a slab, not a basement.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're building a basement.
We're building a basement.
Yeah,
We'll
we
build,
are.
we'll build a spec home, to do that, so, but we put a basement. So, yes.
So I looked at the lot, it's the N1, the larger one, so I think it's grateful that we got that lot. Looks like one of the great lots, it's a bigger one, on the end, so I think that will also help in selling it, so.
Yeah.
It's a nice lot.
What is that,
Good point.
the far end of the street?
Yeah, far southeast corner. Second last
Larger
one.
one,
Yeah.
Very good.
Nice size, so thanks for.
The lot price is more than what we paid in the past, but that's just the way things are. I've looked at what we paid in the past, and it's more, but everything's more these days, and I think our home building program deserves our commitment to continuing it, so.
And the money will come from the home building program. We
Right.
sit with over $300,000 in that fund. So the program has the money to do it. And we're opened up to, Donnie, who has an addition coming in hopefully next spring. Lot prices may be cheaper. We'll look around the district. Ultimately, you always want to make sure it's sellable. And so that's why we have that large committee to talk about that and to help us research it out. So.
We're pretty committed to not losing money, so, through that committee and the program, and we got history in the program, so I'm.
This
And
will be,
addition
if
is
we,
what,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
what zone is this addition in?
That's in the
Donahue?
Donahue tenant zone. Everything south of Lincoln is in the John Glenn tenant zone. This would be the first spec house if we end up building on it this summer. We've never actually built a spec house on our own. We always were either with the realtors or with diamond builders. And so this one would be the first time where our entire staff took over the whole process.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nope,
I
nothing
think
wrong.
you said we had the seed money in the account though, too.
Correct. Yeah, this is not a general, this will not come from the general budget.
Right.
Joe, how many, I know that we've added more and more kids to that program. So we have an A-day group and a B-day group. Has there ever been a thought of building 2 homes? Have we ever got that big? Because I knew we were bringing kids from PB and so forth out.
Yeah, that would take, I think to get to 2 homes, we'd have to have a true feeder program from the other districts, whether, us and Davenport are the only 2 in the Quad Cities building. I suppose if Davenport, we ever combined or something, or if Bettendorf and Pleasant Valley,
Had more kids
would
in
come,
residence.
then you might have to do that.
Because I can see it, if they could get 2 lots next to each other and build 2, there would be competition. I don't know if I'd want to be out there and watch the competition go in.
I know.
I don't know if I would want $600,000 to $700,000 worth of homes sitting on the market wondering if they're gonna sell.
Right.
It's scary enough having a $300,000 to $400,000 home sitting on the market wondering if it's gonna sell.
And there's no homes in Mildred right now. That's the big thing. Very few if there is.
Good question though, Frank.
Yeah.
Be a nice problem. So let's have, can we?
I make a motion that we purchase the land.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And let's talk now about the health insurance renewal.
Okay,
So,
Bill, that is not in my
Okay.
packet, so you're gonna have to help me with it.
Oh,
Do you have it with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Well, I'll give a little
does.
bit of history.
Yeah.
So I gave it earlier. We started the first of the year with a really bad renewal number, 16%. From that, we started to really take a good look at our numbers, because what happened is COVID brought our numbers down. But then what we call the COVID catch-up, really this last year, everybody who wasn't able to do their elective surgeries, we had more, and so we had a larger increase. And so if we would have had gone by January's numbers, we would have been saying, what do we gotta do? That's a really high number. We let February come in, which has really pushed us up against the deadlines, because we wanted to be more realistic. We don't wanna put money into this or change our plan dramatically when we didn't have to. And so there was an adjustment of about $185,000, because February finally did come in, or January came in at a little negative.
Yeah.
February and March, in the last 5 years, February and March only came in at a negative twice. I think March did twice. So typically, these are the months where everybody's paying their deductibles. So our plan isn't having to spend money quite yet. And so that should get us in that range. And then some of the recommendations we're making tonight, the one is changing our prescription drug card to Med 1. That has a guaranteed savings of $109,000, but we estimate, because of the way they do business, a very conservative estimate of $175,000 savings. Now, we have a lot more potential there. So, for example, they have a tool where our people can type in and say, I got this prescription, where is it the cheapest at? And what we'll find is we have a lot of people go to Walgreens. Walgreens is very expensive for the overall plan. For the end user, it might not be, but for the plan is. But in the end, it's our money. We're self-insured. So our increased costs are tied to us as a consumer. So we know there's more savings coming there. So that's one of the recommendations, is to go from Elixir to Med 1, which we actually already did, didn't we?
Yeah,
That
that's okay now.
So
Sun
that.
Life was another one.
So Sun Life. So the next one is our reinsurance. One of the most expensive parts of our fixed cost is reinsurance, which by law we're required to have. That means, because we're a public entity, you have reinsurance. So if anybody ever hits over $100,000 in a year, that insurance kicks in instead of our health plan kicking in. So that way you can, you can't get bankrupt,
You got a
because
ceiling.
you have a ceiling. And so it's extremely expensive. Well, United Heartland every year keeps going up and up, even though we haven't used ours very much. We're still going up, so we bidded that out, and we're gonna go with Sun Life, and that saves $35,000.
Yeah.
And with that $35,000, we also get what we call a guarantee not to be lasered. That's a technical term, meaning if you have a really, really high case, and this happened to Pleasant Valley and Bettendorf, even though Blue Cross Blue Shield, I've said United Health, I meant Blue Cross Blue Shield earlier. Blue Cross Blue Shield says they never laser anybody. They laser Pleasant Valley, and they laser Bettendorf School District. So if you got a case that's gonna be in the millions, they say, nope, reinsurance is only covering this. From this point, you're on the hook. Obviously, that could be, Pleasant Valley had to go to partially self-funded now. They had to get out of the self-funded. And so we changed that to save $35,000. Then the last 4 things I guess we did. Number 1 is we raised our deductibles, and Jill, I'll have you go through those numbers for the
So
raising.
the single family difference in network, out of network is $125 or $250, depending on if you're single family, and then $250, $500 single family if you're out of network. So it was really a small increase. I mean, a lot of times people look at increasing them $500 or $1,000. You know, our low end is $125, our high end is $500, and really what's out of network and for Wellmark, I mean, it's minimal. So
Yeah.
When we look at people who meet our deductibles, that's about 200 of individuals on our insurance. Not every plan, but 200 individuals meet their deductible, and only 40 people in a year on average ever meet their out-of-pocket. And so it's a really small number. So when you raise the deductibles and you raise the out-of-pocket, you're really shifting some of the expense to the users. So that was one of the phases we did. The second phase was raising our premiums to all individuals, and now you spread it out over that part over everybody. And how much was that?
The single, for the employee portion, if they are single, their rate is gonna go up $5 a month. For a family plan, it's $10 a month. And then the employer is going to contribute twice that amount. So $10 a month for single and $20 a month for family. And then that had a savings of $95,000, and so did the prior conversation that we just had with the deductibles and out-of-pocket changes.
So out of our new money, that commits $68,000 of the new money we get needs to be applied to health insurance. And then the fourth thing we calculated in is we've been contributing more into our health plan over the last 4 or 5 years when we take everything into consideration, dental, eye, all of that. we've been over contributing, and so we're bringing that number back down to realistic to that ongoing number, and so we won't be over contributing. Did we commit, how much did we commit of that?
60,000.
Is that
Or 65.
65, something like that.
65.
And so all of those things together allow us to balance out our increased costs for our health insurance. It was 100.
100?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
We were
I-
130 over,
Yeah,
so we
and that-
contributed 100 of that towards
You
it.
guys did that.
Joe, I do want to commend you for no notes. You did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
I was writing it really quick. I was like, oh.
He's been studying this a while.
Yeah, tomorrow I will do a
trenches.
video and we'll send a email out to all of our staff
Now
on what these changes are. And earlier I said too, it's so hard to compare, so I never realized Bentonville and Pleasant Valley are over $300 in premium costs for family health insurance. But they're also still with the $250 deductible too. And so it just depends on which way you have decided to try to meet your ongoing expenses. As it's something that, you know, we get to control because we're self-insured, and if we educate people and we're better consumers, but in the end, we can't control market increase costs, we can't control the COVID costs, there's a lot we can't control, and so.
And the changes will be effective 4/1.
April 1,
Yeah.
April 1, yeah.
Now, what about co-pays? Has that
4/1.
gone up?
We don't have
Oh, we don't have a
co-pays.
copay.
Oh, we don't have a
We have
copay?
direct out-of-pocket. So
That's
that's
right.
why in the first 3 months, we don't spend a lot of
That's
money out
right.
of our fund balances, because everybody has to pay the first dollar out of pocket.
Okay.
And so we have, that's how ours
Forgot about
works.
that. Now, will Med, they'll keep providing us reports? Like,
Med One will do a better job for us.
Better job,
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
and we can see a report. I know we are gonna continue to meet on it, the team, but,
They're out of Dubuque too, where
Right.
Elixir, who bought MedTrack, is Elixir out of Texas? It's a larger company, I don't know if they're an Iowa company, for some reason I think they're out of Texas, but anyway, I think having a Dubuque company with a track record of working with schools, and it's gonna be a good change for us.
yeah.
They also have in their contract, they continuously look for cost savings year
Yeah.
after year, right?
Yep.
And report that to us, okay.
Yeah.
Molly and Tracy, anything else you wanna add to that?
Joe did a great job.
But the only other thing is, again, I said earlier, thank you to the committees, we have board members on there, we have, about the only group we don't have represented right now is our retirees. Because retirees are, many of them stay on our insurance until they're 65. They pay the whole premium, whatever changes we make, but they're allowed by law to stay on until they're 65. We used to have a couple retirees come, but we haven't lately. But all other parts, whether we have the unions, we have the non-reps, managers, administrators, board members, it's a big group, and it's a once a month commitment for at least 9 months out of the year. And then if things really start looking like, hey, we gotta do changes like this, then it's a lot of pressure when you
Yeah.
think about, you got hourly employees who don't make as much per hour and how that impacts them, and there's a lot to consider when you try to balance this out. It's a big part of what we offer to our employees as part of their compensation.
What I liked,
Insurances.
Joe, too, is there were all these different scenarios where the burden fell on certain groups of the employees, whether it was all premium, all deductible, and this was kind of the best combination so that everybody bears a little bit of the load.
It's good, Tracy.
Yeah, I would just echo that, and, you know, we're a self-funded plan, everybody participates, but in those discussions, everybody's watching out for each other as well, so that they're really, really
Oh.
great good discussions.
It's good to offer, Molly. Okay, any other questions anybody has? Anything you forgot, Joe?
No, just approval.
Can you say the new deductible in out single family, the, max out of pocket, new single family and out, can you just give those instead of saying the 125
Yeah,
increase and
good
stuff?
point.
So that we can have here's the deductibles, and then the 3 other areas, Sun Life, Med One, and we're using some of our balance, right? But what are the deductibles, so we know? Do you know?
The single deductible currently is $1,000 and it's gonna go to $1,125 for in-network. Out-of-network is $1,250 and will go to $1,375. For a family plan, the deductible in-network was $2,000 and it'll go to $2,250. And out-of-network is $2,500 and will go to $2,750. So then the out-of-pocket amounts single, in-network, 2,500 to 2,750. Out-of-network, 2,750 to 3,000. Out-of-pocket limit in-network for family is 5,000, it'll go to 5,500. Out-of-pocket limit out-of-network is 5,500 and it will go to 6,000. And then the contributions, employee single will increase 5, employee family will increase 10.
So the current one is?
Oh, $40. and
40,
it'll
so
go
that'll
to-
go to 45
Yeah.
for an individual?
Yeah.
And 50, or what's the?
The family is 150 for the employee, and it'll go to 160. I do not have the employer numbers with me.
Okay,
They're
but
much
we're
greater.
contributing
Double.
And-
double that, yeah.
and just around $68,000
Yeah.
more as a district next year as part of our premium part of that.
Yes.
Good, thanks, Molly.
Thank you, Jen.
Clarifying.
Yeah.
And then we went for, we're asking to go from Wellmark to Reinsurance to Sun
Sun
Life
Life, yeah.
Reinsurance with a laser.
And increase $10,000. So
And then-
it was $100,000 stop loss limit to 110.
And that's gonna save us 35,000,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
mid one, we expect to, they think it's 175, but they've guaranteed 109, right?
It's 109 guaranteed for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then our contribution, we're taking 100,000 out because we were overpaying or over collecting, if you will. We're growing a
Yes.
balance on vision and dental, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay, cause what's in the packet is like the original kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh.
Well,
so
that was
are you
linked to the
saying-
health insurance committee. There's really nothing attached to this, I guess.
Right, that's okay, so I just wanted you to verbally talk what those were, so people knew what we were voting on, and
Good.
then, thank you,
Sorry.
thanks. No,
That's
that's
good.
okay.
On the fly.
So I want to commend everybody that worked on this, and I also want to commend that, I thought it was a great idea to wait to see February's numbers to do that, because we knew the insurance increase was coming, and you guys played it very well, and I want to commend you guys.
If we
for
didn't
that.
do that, what we probably would have did is overreact and gone to a $500 increase to everything, maybe even $1,000 to families. And what we would have done is we wouldn't have needed to do that. It would have just been a reaction off of a set of numbers
Right.
that we needed further look into. So I agree. It was
So, good job, whoever,
wait.
and whatever, thank you for.
A lot of it
doing
was
that.
the staff of,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
what if we do, what if we don't
Right.
increase it up to this much, we increase it this, and
Yeah.
is there any other money? So I mean, they were asking the questions,
Right.
it was great.
Good job, good job.
And no plan change either. Everything that we used to cover, all the doctors, it's no plan change in the sense it doesn't disrupt
Provider.
anything for the individual.
Provider.
So with that, I make a motion that we accept the health insurance renewal presented by Jill and Joe as they presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Jill.
All of you
Yeah,
for
good
what you
job.
contributed. Tim too, he's on the team.
Hope we dodged the
Mr. Riley.
order.
All right, let's move on to superintendent's report.
Okay, I got a few things, legislative update. The biggest thing we're working on now, and Jill and her staff is doing most of this, is the $1,000 from the governor for 100% classroom teachers. And it means exactly what it says, 100% classroom teachers. It will not go to everybody covered under our teachers union. And so we're working through those. So for example, librarians, nurses, none of them are covered for it. Halftime teachers, not covered for it. What's that?
Counselors.
Counselors not covered, reading specialists not covered. When it says 100% classroom teachers, that is the intent. There's only a finite amount of money. They don't have enough money to cover everybody who would be covered under 279. 279 is the teacher's code. They don't have, because of the teacher licensure code, there isn't enough to cover all of that, and so that's what it is. Obviously, that will cause some grumbling, but it is what it is. And we're working through that. A lot of questions being asked to the Department of Ed, who is, they're just implementing something that was given to them too, and so we're working through that. Obviously, we're still watching the bills, still watching voucher bills. Would love to see, which could help out our hourly employees, the House pass a bill for $40 per student to help cover the increased costs for bus drivers and hourly employees. it would, if they get that through the Senate and to the governor, then that money probably, I would assume, could be used for something for the hourly employees to do something like that too. A year ago, our district used ESSER money to do incentive money for all staff in our district, other than administrators. So we did it. So when you see Davenport's doing it, well, Davenport didn't do it last year, we did it this year. Our ESSER money is committed to math interventionists and reading interventionists. We don't have ESSER money to fill in the gap. And I didn't hear a lot of districts today saying, well, we'll fill in the gap for what the governor's not doing. One is many districts like us, we did it a year ago for everybody. We don't have that pot of money, and we're committed to closing the gap. So
It still makes it hard because all of us make it happen, not just the classroom teacher.
Correct. Yeah.
And so that it kind of, I don't know, it stings a little that a reading interventionist or a counselor would not be rewarded as well.
Correct. And
that's
hourly
things.
employees and everybody else.
Yeah, and everybody, I just use those as
Yeah.
an example, but everybody that
Yeah.
didn't get included,
Especially
that stinks.
a district like ours who've been face to face the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So.
But are they still working out those details, the department head?
Yeah, we're working out the details, but the list is getting smaller and smaller when we're working out the details.
Oh.
It's not getting bigger and bigger. It's actually
Yeah,
what we thought were people who were gonna get it last Friday are not getting it as of today. I mean, they are literally, it's defined. Classroom
Oh, they
teacher,
are.
full-time classroom teacher. So it's getting, I would say, would you agree,
Limited.
Jill, that our list who we thought was on there is shrinking?
And something like that you're signed
Yeah.
already? Is that something the governor's already
It's
signed?
ESSER money, so there's no legislation on this. This is a governor's program
It's her
with federal money. It's her directive to the state. It's a quick timeline.
Claims processed within less than 30 days out the door before the legislative session closes, before we know anything about other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Well, so for this one is, we found out last week, if they wanted to meet our payroll on the 18th, and they're gonna reimburse us on April 8th.
So if you don't
This
use
is,
it,
this is a
it's-
really
you'll miss
fast
it.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said April 5th, I saw somewhere, it has to be paid out by April 5th to get an April 8th reimbursement. So,
I would say we'd wanna do it on our payroll though, cause that's gonna
Mhm.
pay higher taxes.
Sure.
It's the most benefit to the employee.
yeah. And then the state will cover the federal income tax, that'll be part of it, but it's not connected to hypers. So there is no expense to the district other than processing, is the intent, so.
That's the expense.
Any
So-
other questions on that? Okay, let's.
The Y update, the pools, I would, by the end of this week, they should be poured, so in the next week or so, if you happen to be around on Tuesday and you want a tour, Tuesday at 1 o'clock, stop by the office, the cement work will be done. They were just forming up the sides of the 2 other pools. That room is all pools. I've taken some pictures. I showed you. Yeah, central office on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We typically have a short meeting and then we go tour the facility.
And if you want your handprint in the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
Gotta wait
Oh, no,
till it's
that's-
got water in it.
You definitely will leave mud prints as you walk there, I guarantee
Right.
it, so you
Wear
might
a
wanna bring
shoe,
an
I
extra
thought
pair
it
of
was-
shoes.
I thought we
It
could
is,
do
it
that,
is
darn
pretty
it.
sloppy over there. Facility update, we had 2 meetings, we've had 2 different meetings with small groups on small projects. Last month, or last week, 2 weeks ago, the facility committee also attended those. And that was with the architect for him to get conceptual ideas of what we could do at these different projects. The next meeting, I will have on March 10th with the architect and myself to see what was he thinking from that. On March 23rd, we have a facility committee meeting. Then the intent is the architect's gonna bring conceptual designs with a price tag attached to them, so the facility committee can work on it with hopefully in the month of April to bring a recommendation. So I just wanted to update everybody where we're at in those processes.
Is that 23rd meeting, Joe, is that on our calendars?
It's on your calendar.
It is.
March board meeting, actually we're already next week, on the 7th. We have, it's the Jill Show. She's doing, it's her one board meeting a month where, or a year, where she is going to start going over next year's budget with us. A lot of the pieces are in place. Insurance was another big one. We already know the 2.5, the 5. We know what we're getting from the state, so the pieces are starting to fall.
So
into
that's
place.
not a regular board meeting, that's
It's just a work session, 5:30,
It
it's a
says
fi-
the
it's a
Jill
finance
Show.
work session, so,
slash Jill Show.
the Jill Show, yeah. And then, we have the one board meeting, and it's at Virgil Grissom on the 21st, the 3rd.
Oh, is there something else?
Yeah, so it's that 1st and 3rd, for the month of March. And then, of course, spring break, so doing the board agenda will have to be done via somehow, other way, other than that, I will be gone during the whole
Spring
week,
break.
spring break.
So there's not a board meeting, the finance meeting is the one that you said on the 7th?
Yeah, just,
There's
it's
not
a
a board
finance,
meeting.
there's no board meeting, yeah, that was just a carryover, I don't know how that got on there. Just a board meeting, or just a finance session on the 7th, and one real board meeting on the 21st.
The 21st.
And then the spring breaks, 14th through the 17th, there are people working at central office, but by appointment, because we never know who's all gonna be there.
And
A
you
lot
are-
of vacation gets
and you
used.
are gone.
I am gone, and I'm not even sure what kind of internet access I'll have when I'm gone, so.
Scuba diving has that.
Scuba diving, well, yeah, we're doing a cruise, so.
Starlink's everywhere.
Is it? I don't know.
I was
So,
just gonna mention, kindergarten roundup Friday,
Friday.
and that we have the Long Grove Town Hall also March 8th. So that's before our next board meeting. So
Yes.
just
Oh,
to
thank
tell the
you.
public, yeah.
Thank you. I would say, anybody listening, if you know any kindergartners who have not signed up for kindergarten register or got on our list, we're already starting to formulate class sizes and things for next year. And so we definitely would love, if there's any kindergartners out there that we don't know about, it's better we know about them sooner than later.
And if anybody wants to open enroll, they need to.
That was tomorrow's the deadline.
Tomorrow, so
Yeah,
yeah, if
March 1st is the
anyone knows
deadline,
anyone,
yeah.
then
Yep.
they're done.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah.
It looks like I can't make the town hall meeting on the 8th.
Okay.
I'm gonna be in Des Moines
We'll cover you.
then. Okay.
And then Wednesday night, is it Wednesday, when's the
Oh,
special
yeah, the
ed?
special ed thing is
Special ed,
Wednesday.
yes, sorry. I'm
Wednesday?
asleep at the wheel here. Yes, it's
3:30
special ed
to
Wednesday night from
5:30?
5:30 to 7:30.
5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah, it's just an open house setting, just,
So come and go. if you-
yep,
Okay.
come and go if you want.
Thank you, Mark.
And what would people find out about, learn about, ask about there?
It's just kind of like a meet and greet and trying to kind of work, kind of kickstarting that committee again, so any topics that, you know, we have questions about, feel free to come and
Where is it at?
at the high school.
At the auditorium.
At the
Auditorium.
In the lobby there.
Okay, anything else? Those are good tidbits.
I don't know if some of you might be reading at Neil Armstrong on Wednesday, I will be, so.
I will be too.
I have my book, I have my book, I need to practice before then, so.
Okay, I know, I've been practicing mine too.
It's very organized.
Luckily, it's not Dr. Seuss because it goes time.
I'll switch you, I have a Dr. Seuss.
I have a
one.
Dr. Seuss one, and I'm thinking, gee, I thought I knew the English language. I think they gave it to me just to make me look bad.
That's good. All right, any other comments from the board members? Okay,
Motion adjourned.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, Ed White for hosting, and thanks for everybody who's here tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming, and good night.
Said high school time.
No, auditorium.
So Bernie,
Thank you.
on the ninth.
That was good.
Thank you.